G'day, ZiggyD here with some Path of Exile news. In this particular video I'm going to be breaking down some of the most important parts of the new 0.10.5 patch notes, and I'm going to be going over some of the new events while just sharing my excitement and enthusiasm for the in-between season events that are coming up. So to start off with, I'll go over these. So basically the season is drawing to a close fairly soon. I can actually go over to the event ladder here and see that we've only got one more race tonight that I'm going to do, and maybe I can push over to the 30 points there, and then we've got two more races tomorrow and Sunday for me, so Saturday for a lot of you guys, and then that's the end of the season. We get out, everyone's points are tallied up, and the winners will receive their unique skin Demigod's Triumph. So in between that, we'll have about 14 days, I believe it is, of in-between season races before Season 2 starts up, which will have its own, new set of rewards, a new points ladder and all that jazz, so a lot of changes. And in between these seasons, they have a chance to, throw some more wacky races and events towards us. So the developers earlier mentioned that there would be cutthroat leagues in this. So for those of you who haven't played Cutthroat, that's open world PvP where you can invade each other's instances, kill each other, steal each other's gear, and steal their experience. It's really good fun. You should search Cutthroat on YouTube if you want to see some footage of it. There's some up from me, some up from Chris Wilson, some up from Caparian, all worth watching, I think at least. So that's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. That's currently not listed here, but it should be. The developers have said in the notes that it will be in between the seasons, somewhere in the middle of the between season, so maybe after a week of the season being over. So other than that, it's a chance for him to try out some more wacky things to get some good data for maybe potential events they can have in next season, see what works, see what's interesting, and just to, try out some new and interesting things. So we've got some normal ones here like Blood Magic Ancestral Parties, but then we've got this one here. This is the first interesting one, 8-minute Sprint. This is going to be cool. This is where the people who can super figure out the little tiny things to get a massive advantage, or like a tiny eke out every small tiny advantage to get one more experience than the next guy. I'm keen. I'm going to practice for the 8-minute sprint myself and see if I can come up with something interesting for that. But that's pretty cool. Other than that, we've got slow projectiles party races, which is 50% projectile speed on all projectiles in the game, so that means you can potentially dodge mobs' projectiles much easier, and also your own projectiles are going to move a lot slower. And unfortunately for freeze pulse builds, your freeze pulse is only going to travel like an inch. So that's pretty interesting. Otherwise, we've got some more wacky timing here. 30-minute solos, so some people who can farm the ledge the hardest. No projectile parties, so this one seems like it's inspired by Kruparian's, melee man node smash challenge from the 1 week hardcore race a little bit back. So no projectiles from players whatsoever. So that means you have to use those melee skills or non-projectile spells. So that should be pretty interesting. And here is the one that really takes the cake, the Blamped party race. So Blamped is short for you are going to die within 5 minutes. So Chris Wilson has said that his ultimate goal for Path of Exile races was to have some sort of event where no one would ever make it past mud flats. And I think this might be it. So basically, Blood Magic, Blood Magic's not so harsh. Lethal, you guys have probably already seen the lethal races where tons of people getting one-shot by Hillock, so that's pretty serious. Ancestral, if you've ever played an Ancestral race, those totems can really add a lot of craziness to the race, a lot of unpredictability. Multiple projectiles is pretty nasty, and Turbo. So Turbo, lethal by themselves would be death by Hillock every single time. I think a lot of people, and then they've thrown in Blood Magic, Ancestral, and multiple projectiles. It is going to be insane. It should make some pretty cool watching on YouTube and on Twitch. But yeah, I think we're going to see people, really trying to hardcore gear up their character just on the Twilight Strand and killing every single mob on the Twilight Strand to try and, level up twice before facing Hillock or something like that. Should be pretty interesting to see. As you can see from people's reactions, it should be very entertaining. So now let's take a look at some of the major patch notes. In typical grinding gear games fashion, these weekly patches, not so weekly because they delayed this one for a week, but these weekly patches have been pretty impressive, had a lot of stuff in them. So first up, you guys have probably already heard about the new melee Splash, Multistrike and Power Charge on critical strike support gems. So they're coming in this very next patch, which will be out on Monday as well. Monday my time, so maybe Sunday for some of you guys or something like that. You got your typical new uniques. Something interesting is that they're toning down the visual effect of auras to make that a bit less intrusive on the game. So They're constantly scaling these things back, making them still look good, but not making them quite so eye bleedy, which is good for both performance and also just for being able to tell what's happening in a party situation. So they're pretty good changes as well. This one here I'm not so sure about, where under the influence of any aura, so it's an effect for that. So hopefully you can distinguish between aura types, because that's actually pretty important information, but we'll have to see how that plays out. The next important one is the bandit waypoints have been moved away from the bandit spawns. The devs have said that any like waypoint near any boss has been really prone to farming, like really hardcore abused. Even though the bandits don't really give out really good rewards, or they're not really worth farming for most people, it's sort of the sort of situation where people can set up bots or, you know, mindlessly farm that over and over again, and they're kind of just trying to discourage that. So not too sure to the extent, but Chris did say it's not a huge move away, but it'll still be something to be aware of. So if you're planning out races based on instantly being able to go back to the bandits, you might have to change those up a little bit. Next up, we've got some other visual improvements, and this one here, elemental damage visual on hit effects now only play for the highest damaging element. So when you attack with like a freeze pulse and it has added lightning on it now, I believe that means it won't show the little lightning spark effect, it will just show the cold hit effect. So that's a little bit sad, but maybe it's a performance thing. You know, I'm all for performance improvements. Path of Exile can be a bit sluggish at times with certain effects, so that's pretty good. And lots more art and sound improvements and things like that. Balance changes, first big one, Incinerate. Incinerate's universally said to be pretty useless at high levels at the moment just because of its absurd mana cost. Alright on totems, but then you've got the flame totems, which are really good by themselves anyway. So reducing the mana cost progression for this at high levels, you're making it cheaper at high levels. Maybe it'll be enough to make it viable, but we'll see. People who are currently testing high level Incinerate builds will be able to test that out after the patch, and that should be pretty good. Now, this one isn't so interesting for itself, but its other implications is good. Viper Strike intentionally does not work with the melee splash at the moment. So while that's like, okay, that's a bit sad, you know, you can't stack Viper Strikes on lots of mobs by having it splash. However, that does tell us that melee splash will function in a way that allows the effect of a melee skill to affect other mobs. So if they've had to disable that for Viper Strike due to balance reasons, that means things like Dominating Blow could work in a splash area, so every mob that's killed in that area could be converted. You could have like Glacial Hammer freezing mobs all in that area, so that's really good if you're planning on trying to make a build based around melee splash and spreading effects in an area of effect. Then that is very good news for you guys. So that one's pretty interesting. Range of Arc's been reduced by Blackguard Mages. That's pretty nice. Those guys are pretty insane to deal with sometimes. Here we go. So Vol's Protector. A lot of people are saying since the new melee gem Power Charge on critical was coming in, Vol's Protector would be useless. The devs have recognized that was an issue. So they've buffed Vol's Protector to now give a Power Charge to based on every target that's critically hit rather than just the critical hit itself. So that's pretty good news. You can really stack up those power charges quickly if you want to use the Vol's Protector build. You don't need to use that support gem, so that's a good one there. Since this is like a buff for the patch, since this is a buff for the unique, and rather than being a change to the mod itself or the way the mod rolls, it's actually changed to that particular mechanic. So that affects retroactively as well. So if you have a Vol's Protector now, it'll be buffed as well, so it won't be just future ones that'll drop. So that's important because the very next one, Silver Branch, is being nerfed, and that is not retroactive. So this one's pretty interesting, and maybe some currency making pro tips about to come your way, because Silver Branch is having its +1 to bow skills, +2 to bow skills reduced to +1. So that was obviously the biggest thing about Silver Branch. It was a kick-ass leveling weapon because it increased the damage of Poison Arrow. That's it. That was the reason it was so popular. So, however, because this is a change to the mod itself, any Silver Branches that are dropped before this patch will have the +2 to bow skills, and they won't change unless you use a, I think it says, unless you use a Divine Orb on them, which will re-roll the mod. So don't use a Divine Orb on your old Silver Branch when the patch comes out. But basically, save up your Silver Branches now, because they're going to be worth a lot more after the patch. People, you know, wanting to really power level, Silver Branch is a great skill to do that with. And in the future, only +1 makes it not any better than, well, really not much better than a normal bow with a +1 to bow skills. So save up those Silver Branch, particularly eye level ones. Start chancing some crude bows, maybe some eye level crude bows with good sockets, because a well socketed Silver Branch with the +2 to bow skills could be worth a fair bit, maybe. You know, always do your own research on these sorts of things. Now in these balance notes, the final things that are interesting are that we have the drop information, or the information for where you'll get the new melee support gems. So firstly, melee splash is given as a quest reward for sharp and cruel in normal for most classes, and then in cruel for witches, I believe. So only witches. So that's pretty good, pretty accessible. Most people who have a build leveled up a little bit in normal will be able to get that pretty quickly. Power Charge and Critical is from Witches and Shadows and Sharp and Cruel as well in normal, and Templars in Cruel. So that one is pretty accessible as well. So if you're planning on making a Power Charge build or a Melee Splash build, both of those are pretty accessible. However, Multistrike, which is the one I was really excited to test, is currently a World Drop support gem. So that means it's not available from any quest rewards, and it means it's going to be hella expensive. So if you find one on the first day, maybe, unless you really want to make a build based on Multistrike, I'd go ahead and sell that, because they're going to be worth a ton the first few days, or maybe even the first week. I'd love to get my hand on one, but maybe I won't be able to make a video showing you guys Multistrike for a little while yet. I might have to delay that one for a while. So that one's pretty interesting, but yeah, keep an eye out for those Multistrikes in case you happen to find one. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I know a lot of you guys are pretty keen on these new melee support gems. I'm leveling a pure evasion sort of ranger at the moment, so they're not going to affect me too much. But if I can get my hands on some of them, I'll test them, and if I can come up with something interesting, I'll give you guys a video on them. But look forward to this patch. Overall, I think it's pretty cool stuff. A few pretty interesting changes, and of course we've got the new events coming up at the end of the season, which I'm really looking forward to, especially Cutthroat. And I fixed up the recording software on the other computer that I record races on, so maybe I'll be able to bring you guys some good race footage as well with some commentary. Yeah, something to look forward to. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.